What's going on, Dad?
Not too much.
We're doing this now.
I know.
We're doing this.
I know.
Not very good. This isn't a great setup, but we're going to just try this once to see if we like it. We'll probably get better stuff to do this with, but we're going to be talking
You got
about...
to start somewhere.
Yeah, we're starting pretty low. But we're going to start off talking about kind of our deer season going into turkey season. Just talking about, because none of the footage really goes over anything of what we did this year. Probably one of the worst starts and one of the worst endings we've had to a season.
Actually, well, I don't think it was the worst ending. I mean, I had a pretty exciting ending.
For him.
I had a pretty exciting ending.
Well, it could have been a lot better, but we'll get to that later. I kind of want to go over the off-season first real quick. We kind of had a little 6-minute video kind of just brushing over the deer we saw. Mm-hmm. This was our best off-season ever.
Oh, no doubt.
It was our best off-season. It wasn't even close.
The amount of big bucks we saw were, to me, was shocking. And it's great, too, when you don't have an expectation. And then you go out.
There were no expectations.
and you go out and you see some of the biggest deer of your life and biggest bucks
60,
of our life.
70 yards away from us every day.
And the one day that JoJo and I crawled up to the basal buck, we probably were like 50, 60 yards from him that day. And it was just, to me, it was mind-blowing just to see how close we got to deer of that magnitude, because it's just not around them very often.
No, and here's the thing with where we hunt on public land is that I've made the joke, and I don't think it's a joke anymore. It's a fact. It's every other year. It's every other year. 2020, I shot my biggest deer ever. Mm-hmm. You could have shot the same exact deer. That's another story. Mark Irway shot a giant. Katie Jo shot arguably her biggest deer ever, and it was just overall our best season. 2021, besides Elvis, the sad story of Elvis, there was no bucks.
Not really.
2000, now going to 2022, bucks everywhere, but they were only showing up at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And we didn't really...
I got prodigal, and that was kind of exciting.
That was awesome, but all the big bucks that we got pictures of that year on public land never showed up because the place where we hunt is surrounded by corn.
Yeah.
And they didn't cut the corn till the day before, and then all the Michigan guys showed up and killed like 20 bucks.
Yeah.
We didn't see any deer. And then we're fast forwarding this year. I think we got 2 bucks on camera that were like 140 on public land.
Yeah.
We didn't even pay attention to public land after the first month.
I lost so much enthusiasm for the public land, and I took a lot of pride shooting quality bucks. And I went, I don't know, maybe 5 years in between shooting bucks because I won't shoot a small one.
It was longer than that.
Was it?
I think, you shot 2 8-pointers of like the same size within a week of each other at the end of 2015. You didn't shoot another buck till prodigal of 2022.
Well, no, I shot that 8-pointer in the field that Mark Irway spooked to me, and I shot him
21.
So 21.
So just the year before.
Yeah.
So from 2015 to 2021, you didn't kill a deer.
Yeah, so 6 years.
Yeah.
I said 5.
Was it 6? Okay.
That was the
Man,
6th.
It seems so much longer.
That was the 6th season.
That's
and
a
I
long
shot
way.
him. I mean, he was a quality buck for public land.
Oh, yeah. I shot, which he shouldn't have shot because Elvis showed up the next day.
And that's the thing.
And they got killed by somebody else, which
that's the thing. You don't know. You could say all day, I shoulda.
And then if I didn't shoot that buck the year before, I never would have seen another buck.
No.
I shot 7 deer.
That was when I was preaching it.
Yeah, I shot 7 deer. No, I don't mean the 8-pointer. I mean the 10-pointer I shot the year before. If I didn't shoot that in Dixon stand, I didn't shoot that buck, I wouldn't have seen a deer the rest of the season. And I shot 7 deer that year, which is my most ever, and I was seeing does every single day, and all you guys were seeing all the bucks. Katie Jo had like 3 encounters with big bucks.
And that's nice to be able to get, a couple deer on public land, and then to have an opportunity at, on reduction zone to shoot a bunch more deer.
Just a quick fact. In reduction zone, you have to kill 1 doe to kill a buck. I've seen so many people talk about you have to kill 8, 9. No, you can actually kill 4 bucks in the state of Indiana. If you play out right, you can kill reduction zone, your regular season tag, and then they have state park hunts and you can kill a buck each state park hunt. In the rules, it says a buck and 2 antlerless deer for each hunt.
Or you shoot 3 antlerless deer.
Yeah, and it's for each hunt. It's not I shot 1 buck. No, you come back and you can shoot another buck. Yeah. And then you have farmer tags, which...
Depredation tags.
So can that be an extra buck?
Yeah.
So can you theoretically shoot 5 bucks in the state of Indiana?
If you have every opportunity... opportunity,
I don't know if anyone's ever done that before.
I have no clue.
But going back to our off season, we had Zeus, which was probably a 170 at least. Do you think so? I think he grossed 170.
Yeah.
And then
he's pushing 180.
But I know like we get real big with bucks in velvet, and then they shed their velvet, and you're like,
oh. Yeah, that wasn't.
He lost 20 inches.
They all
but
look
he
big.
Was huge, man. And then it's
because of the mass. I think they look like they have great mass.
But he does. And I think Zeus and then the buck Goliath, who was a bona fide 180, both left
giant. Man.
Both left. I think we lost. We only seen Goliath once, and it was.
I've seen him more than once, but
September, and then I lost Zeus September 6th. The season starts September 15th. All the deer left.
For reduction zone.
All the deer left. They all left. We hunted, and I saw a little 4-pointer. Never saw a buck the whole month of September. It was so hot. They moved off.
And I shot a doe like right away. Boom, got my doe down the first night out. I was like, here we go. I'm ready to shoot one of these big bucks.
The doe wasn't a problem. I mean, killing a doe, we're like, oh, we got this.
Yeah.
And we didn't see Basil buck until the second week of October.
Yeah, I didn't see him at all.
You didn't see Basil buck?
I never saw him.
I had 3 encounters with them.
Technically,
yeah. Well, no, you had the encounter. No, Basil buck showed up the morning and said, go to the private land. Basil buck showed up the morning, showed up again, and then this absolute giant 12-pointer shows up. He actually drove an hour, got there.
I was doing like 90 miles an hour.
And the buck is there. Unfortunately, the buck was downwind of him. If you would have hunted
he was in 30 yards of me.
And it's probably the same size as the buck that he shot, maybe bigger. I don't know.
He was within 30 yards of me, but he was coming downwind, and I was hiding in a thicket. And I was in a perfect spot. If he would have walked back the same way he came in, it would have been a perfect setup. The wind would have been perfect. But this time he came behind me, was making a scrape, and I was in that thicket. I had no shot at him. He was 29 yards. I had no shot, and he's making a scrape. He's just hammering on a tree. All I could do was watch him. Just an absolute stud.
It sucks, too, because y'all had... I could have killed Basil buck. He was 20.
You should have shot him.
He was 22 yards. I already shot a buck, and I kind of got him on video. I had my camera stand. I had difficulties, so it wasn't on the camera stand. I forgot the piece. It wouldn't work. I had to get another one. So I had to just put the sling on the camera, and I would have to place it. And that's why my footage of him when I shot him, it was also dark out.
It was such a struggle to shoot.
But
it was dark for the camera.
Yeah,
it wasn't dark out.
Dude, if you look at my phone camera, you can see how bright it is behind me.
Yeah, the camera looks dark, but it was still
camera,
light.
You lose light like 20 minutes before dark, and you could still see him coming at kind of because I couldn't zoom in on him because I literally couldn't see the camera where I was, and I couldn't move it because I cut everything but at the corner because I wanted brush there because so many times. And I don't want him looking at me, but dude, I was moving around and they never looked at me. Yeah. I love that corner on that spot. But when I shot that buck, I'm like, I really want one on camera. And I thought what Basil buck was going to do, which he's done 20 times, was come in front of our trail camera. Nope. He kept going this way. I could have turned around and shot him, and then I wouldn't have gotten on video. Another kill, not on video, and I didn't want that. And I swore. But I knew the wind was blowing that way, but I had deer urine on me. I just washed my clothes. I just washed and sent away. I'm like, I think this is going to work. Because I poured doe pee all around me. And I'm like, he's going to at least turn the corner and smell it and come in front of the camera. Nope. Walked straight to the bedding area. 2 hours later, came right back. Never saw him again the whole season. And that just is a testament to you get one chance. I got 2 chances because the first chance I messed up. I was too close to him. He came up. I have it on video.
I couldn't believe you sat there.
I thought because here's the problem. The camera's right here. I thought he was going to come this way. There's nothing but a big tree. No, he came almost this way at an angle and was eye line with me. I thought I would find him coming this way with his head down, and I'd be okay.
Yeah.
It was the angles was not what if I knew he was going to come from that way and not straight away, I would have went to that tree where you were at.
Well, the fact was that we saw these bucks. We saw Zeus and
Seen
Goliath.
We've never seen big bucks, and we've been hunting this place the last 2 years.
I mean, dear
they
Lord,
came out of nowhere.
I don't know where they came
No,
from.
like 10, 15 bucks.
And even my buck, came out of nowhere. 160-inch deer. I never saw that buck before.
Never saw him.
But that's
what the rut does.
Early November rut kicking in, chasing does. That's what it did for me. And and the fact was that I was so dead set on killing Goliath. And I thought during the rut, there's a really good chance he could come back through that area chasing a doe.
And he didn't.
And he didn't. But my heart was so set on him that when the buck that I shot came out chasing the doe, I saw him. I looked at him with the naked eye, and he was at like 120 yards or so, coming out to that field. And I was like, he looks like a pretty good buck. I'm like, oh, it's really cool. He's chasing does. And then he chased the does back and forth and went in the woods across the field. And then he came back out. And then I noticed when he walked straight out and then he turned and looked at me, I thought, wow, he actually looks pretty good.
Yeah.
An absolute stud. And then to be able to shoot that buck and from the ground on my knees, hiding behind a tree.
Yeah.
I had the camera, but I had it set up on this side of the tree.
It's so hard.
The tree was this big.
It's so hard to self-record with a bow on the ground.
It just was like my whole focus was I'm going to kill this buck. There's no way I'm going to mess this up, and I could. There's no way I could move the camera all around.
We don't have a GoPro yet.
No.
We will.
We're in the early stages of getting this started.
We will for turkey season. I will have the gooseneck GoPro because that was the whole reason we couldn't film much for turkeys. I had to crawl through water. I still don't know if I would have put
deer season. Part of my problem is sometimes my time frame is so small of like getting in the tree. I mean, it happened one of the last 2 or 3 times I got in the stand. I could still shoot a buck, and I climbed up in the stand and turned around. I had that arm that I got a strap on the tree, had all that on, and I turned around. I think it was the big 9-pointer was walking into the woods as I was doing that, and he looked up and saw me, and it was just a frustration of I hate messing with it. But if you're gonna record stuff, it's just stuff
I let a 145 walk. That's how hardcore I was about it this year.
And we're in the early stages, this first year of doing all this stuff. But I will say, as hard as it is to even get the deer on camera, turkey season's way harder. Especially by yourself.
I struggled so hard doing it.
At least on public land.
It's so much run and gun, and if you don't have a GoPro, I mean, you might as well not even record, because unless you're in a blind and you're on private land and the birds are going to come in, because where we hunt on Indiana, they act so much. And I know a lot of people say it's harder here, it's harder where I live.
I mean, Greg does a pretty good job on
hunting public.
He
Greg,
does. I think
that guy's amazing. He's got some high techs. He's got stuff that I couldn't even.
He does a pretty good job when he's by himself.
Greg is pretty. That guy's amazing. But he's been doing that for like 20-something years.
Yeah.
He's got his own videos from the 2000s.
Really?
Yeah, I watched him. He's got a bunch of old 2000s, but trying to get past our off season. I mean, all the deer we saw in September. Usually, our youth hunt is like our most successful time of the year.
Yeah.
And it really depressed me how bad our youth season was. There were no food plots. Everything was overgrown, and it was so hot. We saw like 2 deer a day for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
It was a joke. And I was like, in a typical, the last 3 years, we had so many success. Yes. And then the year we start to record, like the whole month of September.
Wyatt just shot an absolute stud the year before.
Just giant body, 218-pound field dressed. I just don't think genetically his rack was good.
But he's a nice
But it was still a tall rack. Great buck. And last year I shot 7 deer. I mean, you could look back on it and be like, you could have shot 7 this year, because you were recording. I couldn't, and that's totally true.
Yeah.
I could have shot a lot more does.
I wish I had somebody with me when I shot my big boy.
I should have.
That would have been cool.
I should have been there. Wyatt should have been there, but that's another discussion. I'm going to be saying that a lot.
But our off season to me was pretty epic.
It's fun. We could just drive up to the field.
It was
and
every
watch
day.
them.
I had so much video footage of these bucks.
We had so much. I couldn't even release all of it because it's just so long. It's just the same thing every. I'm like, I can't release all of this.
Yeah, it just was amazing. But to me, success. You know, and we talked this, and I talked, Joe about it all the time. You're talking about success. What is success when you go to the field? What's success when you get in the tree stand? What is that to you? And to be honest with you, I think it's different for everybody that gets in a tree stand. And some guys' success is seeing deer. There was a time in my life when I was younger on public land when I wasn't very good at hunting that was success to me. But
the deer numbers were so bad in the 90s.
But getting the shot at a deer and then shooting a deer, it seemed almost impossible to me when I started hunting with a bow because I wasn't raised hunting with a bow. I didn't do that till I was probably, I don't know. I was married, had a couple kids before I got
Papa shot a buck that probably grosses 180, and he shot that in 1990.
Yes,
and they did a contest, and he won the biggest buck of the state of Indiana that year.
Yeah, it was a giant.
But it like blew every buck out of the water. But shooting a buck like that was like unforeseen.
For public land, it was just crazy. And then, Joe Shamble shooting that 190-inch buck on public land. It's just like,
was that 6 or 5?
I think it was 2005, I believe.
Yeah.
Or 4.
Yeah, it was 5, I think.
You sure?
I think it was the year after Little Joe, right?
Well, that was 2003.
So 4?
Yeah.
Oh, wow, that's so long ago. Yeah. 20 years ago.
Yeah. But I mean,
giant,
they were just
biggest buck I've ever seen killed out of where we hunt on public land, man. It's just huge buck.
But to have those public land hunts for those many years growing up, but to get what I was saying about success is just everybody's idea of success is different. And when I was younger and the first time I shot a buck with my bow, I'll never forget it. Till the day I die or lose my mind or whatever. But I will remember every second of that hunt. But that was success to me. But then as the years go by and as I get better at what I'm doing, and I believe that I'm a pretty decent hunter. I can hunt and kill, and now to shoot 3 or 4 does, 5 does, whatever it is, and a buck.
You once 10 antlerless, but you once shot 10 antlerless deer one season.
Yeah, I shot 10.
It's pretty crazy for one state.
Yeah, but to have all those opportunities and to have that success, and I process my own deer. My family is fed.
If you don't do that, learn to do it.
Yeah,
you may have to do it here pretty soon.
It saves a lot of money. I can't even imagine.
Oh my God!
Even this year,
save $700.
Well, more than that because your minimum cuts right now, I think, are around $130.
We shot 11 deer between you and me and Wyatt.
Yeah. So $130 or whatever per deer. That's a lot of money
12.
to be putting.
12 or 13.
I don't
remember. Whatever.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But just putting down that kind of money for deer. So I process my own deer. And so and we eat it. That's like pretty much all the meat we buy besides maybe some chicken or whatever.
I think the problem people have today, I think the internet has ruined the internet's ruined a lot of stuff, and it's done a lot of good, but it's really ruined how people view hunting.
Maybe
people, I really do, because people look at all these people shooting 170, 180-inch deer, and that it's just not reality, man.
Well, it's not reality, but to be honest with you, even you
and
hear
that's
a lot
not
of these
jealousy towards people that shoot.
No.
I love when people kill big bucks.
I have no problem.
But people think if you go out and shoot a 120, 130, that's a disappointment. It is not a disappointment. No. That's awesome, and
especially on public land.
Yeah, public land's different too. And
here, let me say this too, though. When it comes to what you desire, what you like to kill, compared to what you see on TV or on the internet, you'll see a lot of guys, and you have to pull yourself away from the guys that have private land, that have 2,000 acres of private land, especially that only they hunt,
out west, man.
And then you get into the big TV personality guys that, they're saying now, I mean, a 200-inch deer. There's a lot of people killing 200-inch deer. And I know you may say, well, that's just TV personality. But that's what I'm talking about. All those guys that do that stuff, that draw, and you hear someone shot a 200-inch deer. Yeah, well, that's happening a lot now.
On public land, that's beyond impressive. On private land, it's not that it's easier, but it's easier to maintain having a deer in that area.
Have you heard anybody of shooting a 200-inch deer on public?
Well,
I haven't. That I know of. But
Joe's gross. I know that he had a lot of deductions, but gross wise, I think Joe's buck is
because he was 191.
It was 191. I don't know if that was his regular score, if that was his gross. But it was that's the closest I think I've heard. But a lot of guys don't get their bucks scored, so you don't know. And dude, sometimes you get bucks out there that you're like, oh, that's not even close, and it is.
Yeah.
Because the way they score stuff is so weird now. And I'm not really a numbers guy, but it's just kind of an idea to give to people when they ask you. But it's people look at that stuff now, and at least on private land, you know who's going out to the woods and who's coming back. On public land, dude, a guy could walk to your stand, run his dogs out there. Guys could hunt your stand. They could wound. Could wound the buck you're hunting. You don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, look at the end of the season, which this is something I didn't record at the time. Me and you hunted on public land. This is one of the last hunts that we had, and I walked everywhere and I spooked a big buck who was wounded. I should have killed him. Had the buck over, or I had the gun over my chest because I've been walking all morning. I walked 6 miles. And I was put it on here, and he literally stands up 10 yards away, and I had the muzzleloader on my chest because it's muzzleloader season. Mm-hmm. I should have killed him. By all means, I should have killed him, but someone shot him in the leg and wounded him, and it just goes, you don't know who's coming into the woods and spooking, but private land, you know. And I know that I think we're learning a lot more about deer when it comes to them moving. They just did a study on a buck that went 18 square miles. Mm-hmm. They used to say the older a buck is. Well,
I don't know if it was square miles, but 18
was it just
miles.
8 straight? That's even worse, honestly.
18 miles.
18 miles. The fact that a buck would go 18 miles and then 18 miles back.
Yeah.
They used to say that older a buck is, the smaller his territory gets.
Yeah.
I don't know if I believe that anymore.
Well, and some of it is we just don't know
myth
about
wives' tales.
It's
the tradition thing where he gets told this and then his dad told him this and then you find out that's not true.
Yeah. Well, when we find the best way they found out is you get these universities that they collar these deer, and after a couple of years they're following these bucks and all their travel is recorded, and then they start seeing, oh my Lord, this thing went, look how far this thing went. And they hadn't seen that. And I know don't get me wrong, I know they've collared deer before. Mm-hmm. But for whatever reason, they've gotten more data now to understand what these things are really traveling. And with this Alexander buck that was killed in Ohio, I haven't heard anything lately about it.
No, it's probably going to be a while.
It might be a while. Cases. But, you got people saying they saw that buck 10, 15 miles away.
They probably did. I mean,
and it's probably true. But, you're learning more and more about that these deer actually travel a lot farther than what you think. I was shocked to find out that we had a picture last year or maybe a year before, early in July. And, I mean, this buck was wasn't tall, but he was still growing early. But he was, way outside his ears. I mean, one of the widest bucks I've seen. Mm-hmm. Pretty sure he was from 2 or 3 miles down the road that they got pictures of him later on, which at the time you're like, man, it seems like this should be kind of his core area,
area,
But it wasn't. Even probably up to 4 miles.
Do you think they're changing because of so many woods getting tore down?
And all of that, I think, changes the adaptation of deer. Let's just look at from back in the early 80s when tree stands were made. You get in a 10-foot tree stand, whoa, the deer were never looking up. Now, me, I'll be 30 feet up if I can.
Yeah, you will.
If I can get my climber, I'm going 30 feet if I can. But
skyscraper, man.
I'm never below 20 feet. And now they look up at 20 feet.
And we know this because we've hunted public and we've hunted private. And when we used to hunt it, we hunted John's a lot. They were always over there, and they would never look up.
They never looked up
because no one ever hunted over there.
No one was hunting there.
You could they would look.
Kill a lot of deer there.
Oh,
they
yeah,
never looked up at.
Nope.
Me.
And on our public land, we would have all the time does look up. They're 50 yards away.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say, well, they saw you move. They saw. Dude, I'm not moving.
Yeah,
you're like doing this to grab the bow, and they'll look at you.
And even the young ones are looking.
They just don't care.
It's just crazy.
They just don't care, and that's like what I found a lot. They'll look up at you, and then they'll just mosey on. But those old does, man, I'll take a big buck over an old doe any day of the week because those old does are, man, you can't move. They like sense you move too. They won't even look at you. But going on past October, because October, besides me missing basal buck, and then right at the end of October, I shot my buck reduction zone. We're going in November, and that's when you shot your biggest buck. We killed our most deer in November. It was a great November. It was honestly, it was a great.
Wyatt
November.
got a great buck.
And Wyatt got
man,
Wyatt, and
awesome buck.
That what's so weird about this season, and this is the mistake I think we made. You know, it's kind of like the Batman. You know, victory has defeated you. We've been so used to having great deer movement on our tree stands. We didn't really have any backup places to go on public land. And you may think, well, we had this tree stand or this tree stand. Well, we went to what we call the paintball place. Was there any deer going through there? I had maybe a 4-day period of bucks going through there, and then it ended. Yeah. We used to have a 2.5 week period of giants going back and forth. It died. The year before, we were seeing does like crazy over there. Nothing. It died. And then we look at the Dixon stand past the ditch. We've always had great deer move. Not so much this year. It died.
But let's also remember too, the weather was not good this year.
But it's been like this the last couple of years, where it gets super cold in November and then it warms up in December. We don't get snowy December.
But I mean, even when Wyatt shot his buck on opening day, it wasn't that cold. I mean, it was pretty warm out.
That morning was 24, 22
But he didn't shoot
degrees.
it in the morning. He shot it.
He shot it in the evening. But that's how that whole year was in December. It was 24 in the morning.
November.
Oh, that's true. Well, Novembers are usually our colder months now.
This year it was not good, and we had like a spell in November where it even snowed.
I think the second half is when it was cold, but
then it just all of a sudden it just
got warm.
It got warm.
And
December was horrible,
and that's why we didn't
rainy, warm.
That's why we barely. If you watch our videos, the last 2 months was warm, rain, high winds, and then it went to -30 for a week. I'm not hunting in that, and then it got back to warm. So we couldn't go out because the deer weren't moving, or it was so ungodly.
Well, I went
cold.
out and I was shocked, even when it was super cold, with my heater bodysuit. If you don't have one of those, check those out, because you can hunt 30 below zero, and I did. But
those are great, man.
They are great.
I love that thing.
But if you once I got in the tree stand, got my heater bodysuit out, I could sit all day in it. They still weren't moving. No. I still weren't seeing deer. It was such a weird season after November.
And this is private and public land. That this happened. I mean, I couldn't find any deer in December on public and no deer on private. And I wonder if it has to do with it's all about food source. And it's that simple, because on our public land, the only turnip fields they put were right next to the parking lot.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It was the only turnip field for miles and miles, and by November the deer were never coming to it. And then surrounding the entire public land was all beans.
Yeah.
And once they cut those beans, deer
they're not coming back.
They're not coming. They don't really come back to bean fields that much at all.
No.
If it's not corn, they're not coming back. And I think that's what happened. They were going to cut cornfields, and they were nowhere near us. But here's the weird part: when Wyatt killed his buck, there was no one hunting around us. There was no one hunting. I never saw one dude. I mean, besides the one
walking around.
Besides the one instance you had with the one guy walking up to you,
the day before.
Yeah, the day before gun season, he was almost put a tree stand right by our tree stand. It happens, but the altercation was
stupid.
They had a miscommunication on that one.
Yeah.
But I never ran into dudes. So I couldn't understand why there were no deer. There was no pressure. There was no one hunting where we were hunting, and we still weren't seeing deer.
Yeah.
So it had to be about food source. And on private land, it was the same thing. We were surrounded by bean. Nothing but bean fields. So the year before, where it was a cut cornfield, we had does coming in and out. We had nothing.
And they're hitting those cut cornfields. They're gonna be,
yep.
you know.
And that was kind of like the double-edged sword with us, because early on in the season we were seeing all these giants, but by mid-October, November, they were already gone, either by the rut or they were going to just a food source where the does were. And it was such a high-low season where it started off great, and then it was sucky for a long time. Then it started getting good, and then it went back to sucky, because all of our footage is like end of October, November. Hey, 2 months went by, we have no footage.
Yeah, and that's what is kind of depressing about the deer season, when you get into spots where you think like, I'm going to see deer, and I'd seen a lot of deer. Yeah. I mean,
you had arguably your greatest season ever.
Yeah, it probably was my best season ever. And to do it almost all of it with a bow.
Yeah, you shot one doe with a gun.
And just to shoot, I mean, all of the bow kills was, my Matthews was out rocking, so that was fun. Just to be able to just get a lot of deer on the ground.
The only thing that was bad for him at the end of the season, which this sucks, you shot a doe, you drilled her, couldn't find her.
Yeah. To this day, I'm
baffled. Could not find her. Like,
my mind is just blown.
And you shoot rage, so like you can't explain it. And then
I saw blood
immediately
on impact. I saw blood, and it was all over the trees where she went down. Literally the only thing I can come up with is that I maybe hit her high in the entrance because I was shooting from the stand, not from the ground, but that I was high and I got one lung, and the direction that she ran and turned, something happened that I could not find this deer, and I searched for hours and hours.
And literally
the worst part is that when I shot her, I took my time. I'll get down, waited. I heard her crashing, which I thought she was down. Got down, I was excited, got my arrow, complete pass through, blood was all over the place. And then an absolute downpour.
Yeah.
I mean, it was raining hard.
Yep.
And it was a warm day. And so the rain, all of a sudden, when the rain came down, the temperature dropped like 15 degrees. And the rain washed all the blood. I mean, it was pouring.
Yeah.
I was soaked. And what was frustrating about it was, and I got a LED headband light that a lot of popular guys are getting now, but I put that on and that thing is super bright. It was so cold from the rain and the temperature dropped that as I was walking, now all the steam was coming out of my mouth, and that light was reflecting it, like when you're driving in the fog. The light was reflecting off of me breathing, and I literally couldn't see the ground. I had to shut the light off, find my
it's like
little
the worst
flashlight.
weather possible.
But it didn't matter. It just, any kind of blood that was on the ground, it just washed it out. It was raining so hard, and I think that's the reason why I didn't find her. I came back the next day, walked the woods back and forth, and that's why I'm just thinking that I just got one lung. And she just ran till she couldn't run anymore. And that could have been, I mean, she ran off the property. I know she did. She had to have run off the property.
Well, what I think would happen, and I wasn't there to track you. I was working. I was ready to get off work and help you track. But you're like, no, dude, I'll find her later. Because we thought she just ran. What I think would happen is she ran to the ditch and you spooked all those deer. And she was probably one of them. Because you said you walked up on a bunch of deer.
Yeah, a big buck,
too. Which we'll go back to a big buck here in a second. She took that ditch and I think she went back in that ditch and ran to the other property.
Maybe.
I think that's exactly what she did.
It's
I
possible.
think you got one lung. I think you got one lung on that doe. She ran to the ditch where all the deer were bedded. They got back up and they doubled back, went across the bridge to the other property and died there. I think that's exactly what happened. But by that point, she was probably spoiled. You were probably not gonna, and you were not going to find her because of the rain. She could have died in the water of a ditch, and now you can't find her because the water was like this high from the ground. Like, it was bad.
Yeah.
But you could have, if you would have killed her, and if you would have done at the end of the season you had 150-inch deer coming at you, and you took a shot at 40 yards. He would have killed 2 bucks that were 150. Never happened. Never done that, and you missed them.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't miss them. I mean, I didn't hit them. Let's just say that. The 4 bucks had walked in.
Yeah, 4 bucks came in, which is like, we didn't see that for a month and a half, and all of a sudden,
and the first buck that came in was a 130-inch buck, 8-point, was a nice buck, but he wasn't what I wanted.
Yeah,
and I knew there was a bigger buck coming because I saw him through my binoculars. He literally was 12 yards. I ranged him 12 yards right here in front of my stand, and he's walking around, feeding and feeding, and I'm watching that big buck walking, and I just had the bow. I'm like super pumped, trying to get a shot at him. And that buck fed for so long, and then just, as it happens sometimes, he just looks straight up and looks right at me. And
by accident, sometimes I feel like sometimes
I don't know.
They'll just look around and they're like,
yeah,
because the longer they stay around, especially with multiple deer, a lot of times they'll just slowly pick.
The other 2 bucks, they were smaller basket rack bucks. They kind of stayed on the outskirts in this little path that's right there, but. He was there for a while feeding, and the other one, the big one, was taking his time coming in. He's 10 or 11
push
points.
The small ones out first, like,
good. He's walking in. He has no clue I'm there. Wind's in my face. That buck's down below me. The 130-inch 8-pointer. He's down there feeding, and he finally looks up at me, and he's staring at me for a little bit, and I'm just perfectly still. I'm not moving, and I had my release hooked up. And I had my rangefinder in my hand, and I was just kind of looking, and I had ranged him, and I saw that big one was coming. He looks right up at me, looks down, and then looks up again, and I'm not moving. I mean, I'm still.
Yeah.
But he knew something was weird.
Yeah.
He started backing up. His tail is up, and as soon as that happened, that big buck was just like stopped and looked around.
Yeah.
He never saw me. And the big buck started backing up. The 8-pointer went hop, hop, hop. Tail still flagging. And when he did that, I could tell that buck was not coming any closer.
And it's definitely ironic that we're sitting here talking about how bucks on private land don't look up. And that's what he did.
But
it happens, man.
I ranged him, and he was at like 42 yards, which is easily killable.
You shot the other buck 40 yards.
Yeah, and so I'm like, I know I can easily kill this deer. But when I look through the rangefinder, and now that buck he had hopped away, and he's probably at 30 yards, and he's looking the opposite way, and still like he's trying to win me. That buck never seen me. The big buck never seen me, and he's just looking around like, what are you acting crazy about? Because he don't see nothing. And so I'm ranging them, and I'm looking through my rangefinder, and I see a bunch of twigs. And I'm like, I think I can get an arrow in there. And
you could. Shot right under him.
I actually hit a branch. I heard it. I heard the impact of the branch, and the arrow deflected, went right under. He still didn't know what happened. He hopped away and stopped and just kind of looked around. He's going to be
an absolute monster.
Oh, he's going to be a monster next year. And he just very slowly walked through the woods, looking around, doesn't know what happened. So it was frustrating for that to happen. I'm glad I had a clean miss. I didn't gut shoot him or nothing like that. I mean, a lot of people might be mad because I did see, but I thought I could get a shot in there.
And I've shot deer, and people get a little crazy, and I know arrows can be deflected, but I've shot through branches all the time and hit deer right on, just exactly on. And a lot of times that is 20, 30 yards, a 40-yard shot. Man, I mean that's tight, and I know we get so pumped.
Yeah, but I thought I had, and I wasn't. I mean, I was jacked up. I mean, I was shaking, but I mean, it wasn't like where I was losing control or nothing like that. I mean, I make the shot. I've made that shot before.
And if you do kill them and it's not a problem, then you're like, I'm good, and, you know. And I've shot deer multiple times through brush, and a lot of times you'll shoot it, but you're losing penetration power. A lot of the times is when you hit branch, like sometimes an arrow can go through a branch and go left, right, or down. But most of the time, it'll keep going, but it's going to start spinning kind of left to right, and it hits the impact.
Sometimes,
and you lose your hitting power a lot because you shoot rage. You're not shooting a mechanical broadhead.
I am shooting,
or you're not shooting a
fixed blade.
And a lot of the times, I've seen Michael Waddell bounce off the deer.
Yeah.
I don't understand why it does that. I've literally seen, and I know Mark Irwave said sometimes they don't open, but now you're shooting the new ones where they just pop open immediately. Yeah. And there's I've seen so many instances with you, with Mark, with me, where the arrow or the broadhead either doesn't open or it flips the arrow. And I understand that's why a lot of people just want to use a fixed blade because it'll go through and it won't do it.
I don't know. Most of the time, every rage I've hit, blasted a deer. So I can't say that I had.
Well, I think they all come like Muzzy. I love Muzzy so much, but oh my God, sighting in Muzzy broadheads is the worst. I don't know why. I don't know why sighting in Muzzy broadheads is such a pain.
It's not. There's more to it. It's more than just sighting in your bow. It's tuning your bow and whatever level ability that you have to truly tune your bow, and you have to know what you're doing. And then not just that. I mean, to have a pro shop around, we really don't.
No, we don't. The one pro shop we had, he closed up.
Yeah, so we don't really have a pro shop around. Yeah. It makes it a little bit more difficult. I wish I had a bow press. I don't have one.
We need to get one.
I need to get one. Yeah. But all that being said, it is what it is. We can sit and argue about mechanical and fixed blade, and I'm not doing any of that stuff right now.
They all come with their positives and negatives. And I've shot G5, Muzzy, Rage. You've shot all of them too. Mm-hmm. And I loved G5. Just the problem is I love hitting that front shoulder, and it bends the broadhead every time on the tip. But with Muzzy, you can take that tip off. It'll never bend the tip.
Well, that chisel tip on a Muzzy is just
brutal, and that's why I love it. But the problem is and here's the things that people don't have the opportunity to do. A lot of people will put a practice broadhead on. Sometimes that practice broadhead does not fly as well as the real broadheads, and I dealt with that problem. Yeah. And the problem is a lot of people don't have backyards and their own targets to shoot at. Mm-hmm. And when you go to a public when you go to a public place to shoot your bow, sometimes you can't shoot your broadhead because they got wood on the other side. And I know other states are a lot more hardcore about you're not allowed to shoot a broadhead into the target because it destroys the target. Yeah. So some people just shoot their practice and they're like, oh, I'm good, shoot a buck, and they're off by 5-6 inches. So and people are like,
that being said, that wasn't my issue. Even shooting at that buck wasn't. That
wasn't your issue.
The fact that there was branches there, I took a chance.
I would have shot the 130.
And no way.
I would have. If I saw him walking away, I would have been like, 2 weeks left in the season.
Yeah, no,
I would have dropped him.
No, I ain't shooting him.
I know you. You went 6 years without shooting a buck, dude.
Yeah, I'm gonna shoot the buck back there, or I'm not gonna get one, and that's just how I am. That's just how I feel.
Yeah, I'm an opportunist hunter. I would say that I want to shoot a 180, but like you saw this year, I was watching that buck, and I haven't shot a lot of bucks with my bow. It's always been shotgun season with muzzleloader, and I'm like, I want to shoot a buck with my bow. I really haven't shot any bucks with my bow, and it really depresses me as a bow hunter. Yeah, it just the way I usually don't hunt on private land. I usually only hunt public, and the big bucks only come out in November, and that's when gun season is. Yep. And I saw that buck coming out, and he was bullying, he was scraping and grunting, snort wheezing. I'm like, I gotta kill this thing. And it was awesome, and I don't regret it whatsoever.
No.
But there's something about shooting a buck with a bow on the ground.
Yeah.
And you've done it 2 years in a row.
I had from turkey hunting, and I despise hunting on the ground for
He
deer.
hates it. I love it.
Like, because being up in a tree stand is everything for me. It's more than just that I'm elevated. It's just hunting to me as far as deer hunting. But the more I got into turkey hunting, the more I started to understand what it is to turkey hunt, be on the ground, and then how to hide. And honestly, I think hiding from a turkey is harder than hiding from a deer. And
absolutely.
But I figured out, you start figuring
Unless
out.
it's December.
You start figuring out, places that they're out in the sun and you're in the shaded area, and you got, fallen logs in front of you, whatever the case may be. Once I figured all that out, like I'm turkey hunting, and I applied that to deer hunting, it simplified it for me. And I started figuring out what the deer could actually see and what they don't see.
Well, deer on public land are way different on the ground.
Oh, of course.
And it's a lot of times I see guys sitting on the edge of a field, sitting on the edge of a tree line. That does not work.
No.
Deer will pick you out immediately.
They do.
And you look at the youth hunt. Even you look back on the youth hunt where you guys were sitting and where I was sitting filming, you're like, I should have been over there. Because it's just in my instinct now as a turkey hunter, I'm going in the middle of the whatever tree line that separates the two fields. Mm-hmm. I want to at least be 5 yards back, because the first thing deer look at are the tree line. That's the first thing they look at.
Yeah.
And you just see a big blob sitting there.
Yeah.
It's where you see a lot of time on private land, people just kind of sit to a tree and stuff like that, and that can work in early season. Later in the season, though, I would say December, it's very hard to hunt on the ground.
Yeah,
it's very hard. Even when you're laying on logs sometimes. I mean, those deer, dude, like they know the areas so well. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. But, I mean, looking towards, I mean, at the end of the season, I mean, I thought it was successful. I was.
Heck yeah, you had a successful season.
I was disappointed at some of the, video footage not being caught, and it seemed like every time I'd take the camera out, I wouldn't see a deer. And then
and then the end of September, he's like, yeah, something's wrong with my camera arm. You go out and shoot a doe. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, that was one thing after another. But we'll get better at it.
I actually thought this year was a lot of fun, and it was really great, and it taught me a lot. Honestly, I don't even have that much technology that most people have to film, and I really thought I could do it where I was. The problem is I found myself, we didn't have enough tree stands. I thought we had enough spots. We did not, and we'll change that. And I found myself on the ground a lot, and I bought that tree arm mount, and I found myself now just using the stand, and it's a lot harder on the ground with a bow. And it's like, okay, this buck needs to get to this spot, and he doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I can't turn it because you have to hunt. I'm hunting in all these thick brush areas where the camera's pointed to the opening, and I can shoot him, but he's not in front of me.
Well, that's part of it. And if you don't have somebody with you, and you're hunting by yourself.
And I don't.
Yeah.
Never. We both work a lot. I mean, I got opportunity to go hunting. You're working. Even my brother's at school, and so it's always by myself. But I think the season was really good, and I've had so much fun.
Well, here are March, and so
I'm going to be shooting my gun tomorrow for turkey and getting ready. We're planning on going to Wisconsin and Michigan and hunting, obviously, Indiana this season. We're going to see how that goes. We have never hunted out of state for turkey ever.
No.
We talked about kind of going to West Virginia or Ohio, but we kind of looked at this year and kind of how everything's going, and we think we'll be able to go because Michigan, dear God, they have a season until the first week of June. So it's we think that we're probably going to go out there and try turkey hunting. Trying so hard to get more private land for turkey.
Yeah, we'll see what we get.
It's so hard because
it's a struggle.
I see people out west ask people, and they're so nice. You ask somebody here in Northwest or a little bit south of Indiana, not southern Indiana, but above 2 hours north of Indy, and everyone looks at you like you're crazy.
Yeah,
they're like, And where I live, you're either poor or you're extremely rich. So you get a lot of rich people from the city living where I live. And I've asked multiple, older women and older guys, and they're like, I pull up to their driveway and they're like, "What are you doing here?"
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Hey, I'm just, I try. You just try." And they're like, "Yeah, no." So it's like, and then people on like the Hunt in Public and all these other channels going to the people, and they're so nice. Yeah, and go and hunt. And I'm like, I wish I knew where those people were living.
Yeah, sometimes I personally have not asked a ton of people. We got that one section of private land
right next to the
public land, and JoJo was able to shoot her turkey on the last day. It was crazy.
Got that on video.
And that would have been what if I had a GoPro, maybe.
You guys had to crawl
we crawled 300-400 yards
trying to get exactly
where the bird was. It was just crazy.
And Candy Joe had a sprained ankle, and she could barely move.
And not just the sprained ankle, but we had my 12 gauge and my Mossberg. It's a Mossberg 835 Ultimag, and after a while, she's holding that 12 gauge.
She could barely. She's so tired.
I literally held the end of the gun up for her.
Yeah. And
then she just rotated this way at the back and the
turkey
walked right to us, and she killed it. But we had one little piece of private land next to the public land, and we hunted it a bunch and really didn't see much. But that day,
there for 4 hours.
Didn't see nothing. It just
so depressing.
It was depressing, but. That's turkey season.
Yeah.
The
first 2 weeks in a nutshell, honestly.
Yeah.
Sitting
and then having only public land for the most part too.
Yeah.
And you got to get drawn.
And you can only hunt
till noon.
You don't
get drawn. You can only hunt till noon.
Yep.
1:00 Eastern. It's so frustrating. I know it's that way in a lot of states.
It's getting more popular.
But man, it's
I
a
will
lot
say,
tougher to kill a turkey.
I will say, towards the end of the season, there was not as many guys. The last week and a half, I was showing up, and 6 guys were showing up. So that was weird. Yeah. But Indiana had its best year in its history for turkey season.
Yeah.
I could be wrong. I forgot the number. Was it 26,000?
Was it that much?
Or 6,000? Or I don't know. I forgot the number.
I think the last time I saw was maybe 16,000.
Was it 16? I remember a 6 in it.
The bottom line is just finding turkey property to hunt on private land in itself is pretty difficult. And the disadvantage with turkey too, at least where we have a lot of spots to deer hunt, those spots don't have turkeys.
It's so weird with turkey. Like deer will be in your backyard, and then turkey will not be an entire city, and the next city over they're everywhere.
Yeah,
it's
next county.
It's so weird that their habitat is so much different than deer, and deer will just be lottie freaking da. I'm flipping. Look at your house. I mean, you live in the middle of a city, and you've seen deer in your front yard. Mm-hmm. I mean, they'll travel in very weird places. And turkey will you'll see fields and woods. They're nowhere to be seen.
And that's what it is. It's just strict habitat, and the turkeys are going to be where they can thrive. Yeah. And if they can't, they're not going to be there. And
especially nothing but fields.
And we just the spots we have on private reduction zone to deer hunt. There's no turkey there.
No turkey.
So we're forced to go to other places. But Lord willing, this year we'll find some spots, some better spots, and we can get, if we need them. Yeah. If we don't.
I'm really looking forward to turkey season, but I'm actually really looking forward to deer season this next year because there's just so many more spots, and we learned so much about the private land, and really because we were hunting that land mostly with does.
Yeah.
And now we figured out all the deer, how the bucks move.
Yeah.
With a different, instead of corn, with beans, because we didn't expect all the deer to be on the outskirts on the tree lines. Yeah. They would not come in the woods.
Yeah.
And we could feel why are they only walking the tree lines and not coming in the woods?
That had a lot to do with how they were bedding.
Yeah, and by the time we figured that out, it was done. Sometimes you get a week and that's it.
Yeah, you don't. It's you think it's gonna last all season and it doesn't.
But I'm really excited for deer, but especially for turkey coming in, and I'm really excited to at least hunt one state because I've never done that. And
hopefully we get some better footage during the turkey season.
Yeah, be great.
to bring to everybody that wants to watch, and hopefully we get some exciting hunts and
really we need to get our wives out
and stuff. And yeah,
we need to get Mom and Jasmine.
I mean, with work is not as much a concern though as for me, but there's things in my life that may change.
Yeah.
It may affect me.
Yeah.
That personal things that may happen. So I'll have to address that as it comes.
Yeah.
Who knows what happens?
I know. It's everything changes with you right now. You're going through a change, but hopefully we can get our wives out. I really want to get Jasmine out and get a bird. She's never experienced a kill. She missed a buck last year. And I know she's into it. I know once she kills something, she'll be hardcore about it. But
Brenda she's went out with me a few times, but I don't know that she's ever even held a weapon. No. I don't even know that she's ever shot any of them.
Mom's never really been too adamant about it.
I need to push her to get out. Maybe I might be regretting that. It's just she really gets into it, and then I can't leave home without her. Just kidding, Mama. But it's every year I say, I get my bird, and then I'm going to take this person and this
Sometimes
person.
And you don't kill one.
Dear Lord, last year was the second to the last day. You and I both shot ours, and then JoJo shot hers on the last day. So Wyatt shot his at the youth hunt. There was a huge span of no one killing nothing to the last minute. So you don't know. Mm-hmm. You don't know.
But hopefully we'll be able to get out there and get to different states and
hopefully bring some good content and I mean. Like I said earlier, we're learning this, and the better we get, and the better equipment we get for the footage and all that stuff. And
if you want more of this podcast thing, let us know. I want to know if we'll do more of it, or if not, I'll just do an end of season podcast every time the season ends.
Yeah,
it'll be fine. So, all right,
all right,
we'll see you guys.
All right, see you.